Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to AITA Chronicles, where Reddit drama gets real. Today's episode? It's savage. We've got a cheating husband who lost everything, a church-going mother-in-law who got exposed in front of her whole congregation, a neighbor stealing water who ended up losing power, tenants, and dignity, and a guy who ignored a job seeker until she blocked him mid-beg. Oh, and someone snapped their fingers at an employee on their last day? Yeah. That weekend project turned into weeks of chaos. These are petty revenge stories that went way too far, and we're loving every second of it. You'll laugh, cringe, and maybe text someone, "Bro, this is you, isn't it?" So whether you're meal prepping, procrastinating, or dodging your own drama, settle in, because this lineup is brutal. And hey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. We're chasing 10K subs, and you're part of making it happen. Let's get into it. Cheat on your wife with mine, I will burn your life to the ground. Now, this is the kind of story that doesn't ask for permission. It walks in, flips the table, and sets the whole damn room on fire. Back in the early 2000s, the writer started to get that gut feeling. You know the one. The cold, uneasy twist in your stomach when something's off, but nobody's saying a word. And the thing about gut feelings? They don't need proof. They already know. But the writer, he wanted facts. He wasn't about to throw down without receipts. His wife had started acting off. 2 kids at home, just 4 and 6, still young, but old enough to talk. And what were they saying? That they were spending a lot of time at Grandma and Grandpa's house. Now that alone wouldn't raise alarms. Grandparents exist to be spoiling machines, but these grandparents lived 90 minutes away, and the kids were being dropped off there 2 to 3 times a week. That's a lot of gas for someone with a part-time job and no other reason to make the trip. So he asks her, just asks, "What's up with all these visits?" And her response? Lies. Weak, see-through lies. The kind that crumble under the weight of a single follow-up question. So the writer starts keeping track, silent, watching, waiting. He logs the mileage on her car. Simple, old school, effective, and sure enough, she's putting in an extra 400 miles a week. That's not just a red flag, that's a full marching band waving flags, sounding alarms, and writing "Your wife is cheating" in skywriting above the house. And then it happens. The kind of careless mistake that only guilty people make when they think they're smarter than they are. She leaves her AOL password on a sticky note next to the computer. Rookie move. So he logs in. And what does he find? Emails. Plenty of them. Between her and her college best friend. And they're not subtle. Turns out she's been sleeping with one of her exes from high school. Not just reconnecting. Not accidentally kissing. Actively, repeatedly, cheating. She even had the audacity to mock the guy's wife, talking about how she let herself go after having kids. Oh, the irony. The writer prints the emails, quietly, carefully. No confrontation yet. Because he's not here for a scene, he's planning a war, and he brings in reinforcements. A buddy who's a cop points him toward a former officer who became a private investigator. Let's call him Ron. And Ron delivers like it's his life's calling. Photos, locations, timelines, a full-blown cheat sheet of betrayal, literally. The writer learns exactly what's happening. Wife drops off the kids at her parents', meets the high school ex for lunch, they check into a dingy motel, spend a few hours playing house, then she picks up the kids and comes home like nothing ever happened. That's the part that really burns, isn't it? Coming home to your husband and kids after hooking up with another man like you just went grocery shopping. No guilt, no shame, just routine. So, at this point, the writer's done being silent. He hires a divorce lawyer, starts drawing up papers, because if there's one thing the writer's sure of, it's that he refuses to pass this kind of generational poison down. His parents cheated. He saw what it did to their family. He swore he'd never let that be his kid's legacy. But he's not done. He asks Ron to dig deeper. Who's the mystery man? Turns out this Bob guy, he's married too, with 3 kids. And he's not just anyone, he's the VP of sales at his father-in-law's company. Family business, big stakes. So the writer sharpens the knife. He waits for the perfect day when his wife gets served with divorce papers at work, blindside style. But the real hit, the same day, Ron hands Bob's wife the full report. Every photo, every text, all of it. And that's where the dominoes really start to fall. Bob's wife, she doesn't cry. She doesn't hesitate. She cleans out their joint account, grabs the kids, and bounces. And the fallout? Glorious. Bob gets fired from the company because his boss is his father-in-law, the same man whose daughter he betrayed, the same man who owns the house Bob lives in. So yeah, he's evicted too. In the span of a week, Bob loses everything: his family, his job, his home, and it gets worse. There's police reports, fights. Bob shows up trying to argue with his wife and gets his nose broken by her brother. Restraining orders follow. Court drama, criminal charges, jail time. Bob spirals, he vanishes off the internet, probably changed states, changed names, maybe changed his damn face. And the writer? He never touched him, never raised his voice, never broke a single law. He just pressed play and let the consequences do the talking. His own divorce? Quiet, clean, strictly about the kids. No screaming matches, no mess. Just cold, hard separation. And now that the kids are grown, he doesn't speak to his ex, doesn't hate her, doesn't waste the energy. She's just there. Like a closed book on a shelf, he doesn't need to open again. Because the writer, he won. Not just the petty revenge, not just the moral high ground. He won because he refused to stay silent when it counted most. So, next time you hear someone say cheating isn't that big of a deal, point them to this story. Because sometimes the fallout isn't just a broken marriage. It's a complete and total destruction of the fantasy world cheaters build for themselves, torched from the inside out. Like, subscribe, and drop a comment if you've ever watched karma do its thing with surgical precision. Because this is how you burn someone's life down without ever lighting a match. My ex-mother-in-law sent her church friends to harass my daughters and I. I have now exposed her family to her church community, and she's getting shamed and shunned at church. This story, it's not just petty revenge. It's scorched earth, no prayers left for you revenge. And it all starts with a woman just trying to raise her daughters in peace after burying the man who betrayed her, and his mess of a family trying to drag her through hell for it. The writer, 46, is a single mom raising two teenage daughters, 17 and 15. Their father, her ex-husband, died last year in a tragic accident. And honestly, you'd think that would be the end of the drama. Closure, healing, moving on. But no, because before he died, he was cheating. And not just casual cheating, serious, secret children cheating. The man had a whole affair partner, and that affair partner died too, leaving behind two baby boys. Orphaned, just like that. And while the writer's daughters are still reeling from that betrayal, because yes, they were the ones who discovered their father's double life, her ex-husband's parents, a couple in their late 70s and 80s, decide now's the time to stir the pot. These people, instead of showing compassion, empathy, or even basic decency, start demanding custody of the writer's daughters. And then, try to move in with her. Imagine the audacity, the absolute nerve. These are the same in-laws who supported their son's affair, who knew he was cheating, and now they want to live under the same roof as the woman and daughters their son betrayed? Nope. Court is already involved over custody. But that second part, living with the writer, that's a hard never. Fast forward to the day of the revenge. It's her youngest daughter's birthday. No big party yet, but a small celebration. Just mom, her girls, and a trip to the weekend farmer's market. It should have been sweet, should have been peaceful. Instead, it turns into a freak show orchestrated by her ex-mother-in-law, who clearly wasn't satisfied with emotional manipulation behind closed doors. She decided to drag church politics into it. While her youngest daughter is happily roaming the market with a birthday budget, probably looking for chocolate, maybe some trinkets, the writer suddenly gets a phone call. Her daughter is sobbing, terrified. She says a group of older women, 6 of them, have cornered her and are berating her in public about being a bad Christian, about not honoring her grandparents, and about refusing to be a good big sister to her orphaned baby brothers. Those brothers, the same children born from the affair that shattered her family. This is the guilt her teenage daughter is being handed from grown adults. The writer runs, her oldest daughter right beside her. And when she sees this group of women ganging up on her child like a pack of sanctimonious wolves, that switch flips. She shoves herself between them and her daughter, tells her eldest to get the birthday goodies and wait in the car. And then she lets these women have it. These aren't strangers either. She recognizes some of them from back when they used to attend the same church her ex-in-laws still go to. These aren't just religious zealots, they're tools in her ex-mother-in-law's hands, sent out like missionaries of shame. They tell her she's the bad one, for not being a submissive Christian wife, for not obeying her ex-in-laws, for not forcing her daughters to forgive and embrace the trauma that shattered their home. It gets loud enough that market security asks everyone to leave. The writer escorts her daughters to the car, the judgmental choir tailing them like a pack of gossiping hyenas. But the real revenge, it begins that night. The writer contacts a friend, someone still tied into that church network. And what she hears? Her ex-mother-in-law posted a novel on the church Facebook page, full-on fiction. She painted herself as a tragic grandmother abandoned by her cruel daughter-in-law, claimed the family left her homeless and penniless, even though they inherited her son's life insurance and bank accounts, claimed the daughters were being heartless, claimed the writer refused to raise the poor orphaned baby boys, who, according to her, were born via surrogacy, not an affair. Let that sink in. She lied to the church and said that the affair partner was a surrogate, and the writer refused to raise the babies because they were boys, like some Disney villain with a uterus. Disgusting, twisted, cruel. But here's where it gets delicious. See, the writer was in the middle of a divorce when her husband died. She still had all the receipts, pictures, texts, emails, even messages from her ex-in-laws supporting the affair and bullying her daughters, calling them bastards and blaming them for their father's death because they told her about the affair. 2 days after their father died, those texts came in. So what does she do? Oh, she doesn't rant. She doesn't post a rebuttal online. She prints them. All of them, in full color on premium glossy paper. She puts them in carefully prepared binders that look just like the church's little hymn books. On the very first page, a full-page photo of her ex and his side chick making out in her living room. Faces visible. No confusion. No way to twist it. Under the photo, a neat little caption, ex-husband's name and affair partner's name, a true love story. Then she sneaks them into the back table of the church, the one where they keep the spare hymnals, and just waits. The gossip spreads like wildfire. People are furious. Her ex-in-laws go from sympathy to social exile overnight. Even the pastor has to step in to calm things down. Now, the church still thinks the writer's wrong for divorcing her husband, but they've now decided it's understandable, and they pray she'll return to the light someday. Meanwhile, her ex and his affair partner rebranded by the community as sinners beyond saving. She's called a Jezebel. He's labeled as a disgrace. They won't even say their names in prayer group anymore. 2 letters show up in the mail, apologies addressed to her daughters, invitations for support from the church, and her ex-mother-in-law publicly shamed. A Facebook wall full of bitter complaints about how no one cares about the elderly anymore, about how she wishes her great son was still alive to take care of her. She conveniently leaves out the part where the writer was the actual breadwinner, the one raising his daughters, paying the bills, carrying the load. And the cherry on top, her lie blew up in her face inside the one place she thought she had control. So yeah, this isn't just revenge. This is surgical humiliation, done with precision, patience, and proof. The writer didn't have to yell, didn't have to key cars. She exposed the truth in a way that couldn't be denied and let the church do the rest. Sometimes you don't need fire to burn it all down. You just need paper, a printer, and a binder. If you've ever had a toxic mother-in-law or been dragged through church gossip, like, subscribe, and drop a comment, because this is what it looks like when truth is the weapon and reputation is the target. Neighbor was stealing water from my supply, so I ruined him. You ever hear a story that makes you want to stand up and slow clap? Because this right here, this is a masterclass in silent revenge, and cold, calculated, and oh so satisfying. The writer had just bought a new house. Not just any house. This one was a diamond in the rough, smack in the middle of the capital city. A fixer-upper, yeah, but it had potential. The kind of potential you only find when someone walks away mid-renovation and you get the keys for a steal. Now the house had been empty for almost 3 years. The previous owners were family friends who needed fast cash, so when the writer swooped in, he got it cheap, but not without baggage. There was no gate, no real door lock, just a padlock. The kind of setup that practically begs shady neighbors to treat it like a public park. Day one, the writer rolls into his new home, and there it is. A stranger's motorcycle parked inside his garage like they paid rent. He doesn't start a fight, doesn't shout, just calmly pushes it out onto the street. A few hours later, some random dude shows up knocking on the gate like he owns the place. No answer. He waits. He fumes. Eventually, he walks away with the bike, and just like that, the tone is set. The writer wasn't going to be pushed around, but he also wasn't about to make noise unless absolutely necessary. For a while, things were quiet. A no parking sign fixed the parade of randoms blocking his gate. Seemed like the neighborhood was finally catching on. Someone lives here now. But then came the water situation. The writer's in his shower, minding his business, when he notices the water pressure's off. Not just a trickle, but noticeably weaker. At the same time, he hears a faint hum through the wall, a water pump from next door. And just like that, the gears in his brain start turning. Now this neighbor? An older man living on the ground floor of a 3-story house he owns while renting out the 2 upper floors. The dude already had a chip on his shoulder. He wasn't happy the house got sold, had whined about it to the previous owners, but he didn't do anything when the writer moved in. Why? Well, the writer's a 6-foot guy with 3 dogs and a don't mess with me energy. That's why. Anyway, in this country, water from the public system can't reach the roof unless you have a pump. Everyone knows this. And if that pump was running right when the writer's pressure dropped, something was fishy. So the writer waits. The pump turns off. He tests the taps. Water pressure returns. Now, it could have just been a coincidence, but that's not how life works when you're surrounded by neighbors bold enough to park in your garage when no one's home. The writer remembers the high water bills from before he moved in, bills that didn't make sense for a supposedly empty house. Everyone had chalked it up to leaky pipes. But now it was starting to look like that leak had a name, and it lived next door. So the writer starts piecing it all together. At some point in the last 3 years, this crusty neighbor decided, why pay for water when I can just steal it? No permission, no shame. Just tapping into someone else's line and living off their supply like some parasite. Now here's the beautiful part. The writer doesn't confront him, doesn't post passive-aggressive notes, doesn't even tell him to stop. Instead, he waits, and when the neighbor's pump clicks on, he shuts off his water from the mains. That's it. One valve, flicked, no trespassing, no legal drama, just a silent, deliberate act of payback. Here's where it gets chef's kiss perfect. And the way the water system works, the pump depends on a ball valve that senses when the rooftop tank is empty. If the tank doesn't start filling, the valve stays open, the signal keeps firing, and the pump, it just runs and runs and runs. And guess what happens when a cheap, probably 20-year-old pump runs dry all night? It burns out. But it didn't stop there. The pump drew so much power that it fried the wiring in the neighbor's entire house. No power, no water, and since this is a rental property with 2 tenants, that's a big problem. Tenant protection laws in the writer's country are strict. No water, no electricity, that's a violation that comes with fines, lawsuits, and a hell of a headache. Within hours, the tenants were screaming at their landlord. One moved out immediately. The other lodged an official police complaint. The neighbor, who relied on the rent for his only income, got hit with a $500 fine. That's not pocket change where they live. Add in the cost of fixing the wiring, replacing the pump, and refunding both tenants' deposits. The guy was hemorrhaging money. And just like that, he's done. With no tenants and no cash flow, the old man packed up and is now moving in with his daughter. From being a petty thief siphoning free water to being a disgraced landlord living on handouts. And the best part? When he came over to confront the writer, standing there at the gate like a beggar with a grudge, the writer hit him with the most beautifully casual lie. Oh yeah, my tank had a leak. I shut it off for the plumber. That's it. That's the dagger. The old man knew. You could see it in his face. That tight-lipped, clenching the teeth kind of frustration you only get when you've been outplayed in your own game. But what could he do? Nothing. Because everything the writer did was legal. No trespassing, no accusations, just a man protecting what's his. And now he's bringing in a plumber to remove every external pipe, sealing his home off like a fortress. That neighbor won't get a single drop from that property ever again. 2 birds, 1 stone, 1 silent tap twist that took down an entire freeloading empire. So next time someone thinks being petty doesn't pay, tell them about the guy who turned off his water and made his neighbor's whole life collapse. Like, subscribe. Drop a comment if you've ever dreamed of serving karma without saying a word, because this is how it's done. He ghosted me when I needed info, so I ghosted him when he needed a job. This one's for everyone who ever got left on read. For everyone who reached out genuinely and got hit with silence like your words didn't matter. The writer? Yeah, they remember that silence. And they used it. It started simple. The writer, like so many of us out here just trying to make smart moves, wanted a little insight into a company they were eyeing. Not an ask for a job, not begging. Just a respectful, professional reach out to someone who already worked there. A familiar face, not a stranger, a senior from college. Someone they'd said hi to in the halls, shared nods with during semester grinds. Not best friends, sure, but familiar enough that it wouldn't be weird to say, hey, just wanted to ask about your experience at X company. What's the work culture like? That's it. Not exactly soul-bearing stuff. And what did the writer get in return? Yes. Okay. Seen, but never heard from again. It was clear. Dude wasn't interested in helping. And that's fine. Not everyone owes you their time. But let's be real. You don't forget that feeling. When you're trying to take a step forward, build your future, and someone shuts the door not with a bang, but with dead silence. Fast forward a few months and the tides turn. Oh, how they turn. Writer scrolling LinkedIn and sees the same guy, now making one of those open to work posts. The classic. Excited to explore new opportunities, open to roles in tech, growth, and strategy. And here's where the story starts to cook. The writer, fully aware of the irony, drops a message. A casual, hi. Just that. No promises, no hints. But the moment that message lands, crickets. Again, classic behavior. But then comes the follow-up, the one that changes everything. I see you're leaving X company. I might have an opening. Boom, instant response. Suddenly, the same man who couldn't string together more than one-word replies, now he's typing essays, giving thoughtful, thorough explanations to all those old questions the writer asked months ago, talking about Teamster company politics, his experience, the pros, the cons. Where was all this energy before? Now he's interested. Now he sees the writer as valuable. Because now he needs something. And the writer? All coming. So they did the only logical thing. No drama, no sarcasm, just block, gone. Like he was never there. It wasn't rage, it wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. It was the writer's way of saying, you saw me as invisible, let me show you how that feels. And listen, some people might say this was petty, but here's the truth. It's not about being cruel. It's about recognizing people who only reach for you when they think you're useful. The writer didn't mock him for being jobless. He wasn't even unemployed. This wasn't about revenge on someone struggling. This was about standards, about knowing your worth, and not letting people who ignored you walk back into your life just because they're the ones who now need a favor. People online had opinions. Some defended the guy. Maybe he was just busy. Maybe he didn't know how to help. Okay, fair. But explain this. What magically made him capable of writing paragraphs after the writer mentioned a potential opening? Exactly. This story, it's a reminder. People will show you who they are when they think you can't give them anything. And when the tables turn, you owe them nothing. Writer didn't burn a bridge, he just made sure the door stayed shut this time. If you've ever been ghosted, ignored, or treated like your words didn't matter until someone suddenly needed you, this one's for you. Drop a comment. Have you ever had someone come crawling back the moment you leveled up? Smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more stories where karma wears a suit and carries a LinkedIn profile. Because around here, we remember who stayed silent when we spoke, and we don't hand out second chances like candy. Snap at me on my last day, I'll make your weekend project last for weeks. So, picture this. You've been stuck in retail hell for 6 straight years. That kind of dead-end, soul-draining job that slowly chips away at your patience, one entitled customer at a time. For the writer, that place was a big Midwest hardware chain. You know the one, where you save big money and lose even bigger chunks of your will to live. The writer worked in the flooring department. 6 years of cutting carpet, loading trailers, dealing with coupon warriors and landlords with inflated egos. But the thing about being in a job that long is you remember the regulars, and the ones who treat you like garbage, they stand out like a rash. Enter Jared. Jared is that guy, the kind of walking red flag who struts into the store like he owns the building, treats the employees like his personal staff, and brags about how many people he's evicted this month, as if that's something to be proud of. A classic scumlord. And today, Jared's about to meet karma wrapped in beige carpet. It's the writer's last day on the job. He's hours away from leaving behind all of this for a new career, finally putting his graphic design degree to real use. But then, just as he's counting the final minutes, Jared walks in. And this man doesn't say hello, doesn't even acknowledge the writer as a human being. Nope. Instead, he snaps his fingers and barks out, "Carpet. Now." Oh, buddy, you picked the wrong day to be a condescending prick. Now, Jared wasn't here to pick up a little area rug. Oh no, he was buying new carpet for his entire apartment complex. A dozen or more massive cuts. The cheap stuff, of course, because Jared doesn't believe in quality, just profit. He wants rolls ranging from 12 by 9 to 12 by 13. Normally, the writer would have sighed and powered through it. But this time, this was personal. This was the moment. The writer had been dreaming of this chance, the chance to get a tiny sliver of payback for 6 years of nonsense. And here it was, served up by Jared himself, mouth open and snapping fingers. So the writer does the job, cuts every single roll. Quickly, efficiently, doesn't give Jared any reason to complain. Then comes the real magic, no labels. You see, carpet rolls don't come with permanent length stamps. They're just massive tubes of fiber. And when you're cutting a dozen or more of them with lengths just a few feet apart, labels are everything. They're how you know which roll goes where, which unit, which room. But without labels, that trailer full of carpet is now a giant, chaotic puzzle, and not a fun one. Imagine Jared standing in front of 12 massive, identical-looking tubes of rolled-up carpet, no idea which is 12 by 13 or 12 by 10. And worse, each roll is loosely wrapped, so if he unrolls it to measure, it's never going to go back the same way again. No straps, no tight winding, just this soft, unwieldy mess of fabric hell. And here's the kicker. Carpet is heavy. It's clumsy. It doesn't bend. It fights you. You try carrying one of those monsters up a flight of stairs, you're gonna lose. Add in the fact that Jared's wind project with the boys now requires unrolling and remeasuring every single piece just to figure out which room gets what. Yeah, that weekend project, it just turned into weeks of absolute chaos. The writer didn't slash the carpet, didn't damage it, didn't leave any trace of wrongdoing. But what they did do was weaponize inconvenience. And that's where the brilliance lies. This wasn't sabotage, it was logistics. And what did Jared get out of it? A trailer full of mystery carpet. A crew of confused, pissed off workers. A whole lot of extra labor for himself. And what did the writer get? Sweet, glorious closure. The chance to walk out of retail life with a silent mic drop. A story they'll probably still be laughing about at their next design job team lunch. So yeah, some might say it's petty, but after 6 years of dealing with human trash like Jared, that wasn't petty. That was justice, wrapped in 12 feet of polyester. If you've ever fantasized about getting just one little dig in before you leave a nightmare job, this one's for you. Smash that like button, drop a comment about the worst customer you ever had to deal with, and hit subscribe for more satisfying slices of karma like this one. because sometimes the cleanest revenge doesn't leave a mark, just leaves the other guy sweating under a pile of unlabeled carpet. If you're gonna steal the catalytics off my truck, you should have checked if they were actually functional first. Wasn't so funny when it was turn. There's a certain kind of poetic justice when someone thinks they've pulled off the perfect crime, only for it to come crashing down in the most glorious of ways. And trust me, this story is the definition of karma getting served on a silver platter. The writer's morning started off like any other, until it didn't. At 2:45 a.m., he fired up his truck, expecting nothing more than the usual hum of a working engine. But instead, he's greeted with an awful, obnoxious noise. Someone had stolen the catalytic converters off his truck. Now, if you've ever had something like that happen to you, you know the anger that follows. It's not just about the inconvenience, it's the feeling of violation. The audacity of someone creeping around in the dead of night, thinking they can just take from you without consequence. But here's the kicker. These idiots didn't even bother to check if the catalytic converters were actually functional. They just grabbed what they could and took off. Little did they know, the writer wasn't about to let this go. So instead of dialing 911 and going the usual route, the writer decided to handle this in his own way, a way that would leave them regretting ever touching his truck. He called up his friend in code enforcement and told him what was going down. With a plan in motion, they didn't waste time. These thieves had been riding around in a car that was nothing short of a disaster. A busted-up police Crown Vic with no license plates, no insurance, and a rattling sound system that screamed, "We don't care about the rules." Now, the writer had seen this car around before. It had been parked in shady spots, causing trouble without a care in the world. He knew it was time to end the reign of these petty criminals, and the perfect opportunity arose when he spotted it parked in a quiet part of town. He didn't just call the cops, he called code enforcement. And the next thing you know, that Crown Vic was on its way to the police station. And here's where the real fun starts. The cops did their usual routine, ran the VIN number, only to discover the car hadn't been registered as certified since 2011. The owner wasn't even the kids driving it, but someone who had sold it to them without the proper paperwork, because they'd never bothered to pay the back registration fees. Now, the police were ready to have some fun of their own. They told the writer, "Take it to the junkyard and we'll deal with it later." So that's exactly what he did. Meanwhile, the two geniuses who had stolen the catalytic converters were out running around like chickens with their heads cut off, desperately trying to track down their stolen Crown Vic. They thought it was some prank by their friends. You know, the classic "your car got stolen, but it's just a joke" routine. But no, it wasn't a joke. It was just karma doing its job. They found the car at the junkyard, and in the most ridiculous turn of events, they tried to steal their own car back. One of them distracted the owner while the other attempted to drive off. But guess what? The junkyard was ready. The second they saw those two coming, they cut the drive shaft off the car before they could even get the engine started. Imagine the look on their faces. They came to steal their stolen car and ended up watching it being dismantled like a toddler's toy. And the best part? They were arrested for trying to steal back their own car. The cops slapped them in cuffs, and they watched in utter disbelief as the junkyard crane came down and ripped their car to pieces. I'm talking bare frame, completely shredded, like it had been destroyed by a wrecking ball, not just a few determined people. When the writer saw the remains of that car, he couldn't help but feel satisfied. The car didn't just get towed. It didn't just get towed to some random lot. It got obliterated, its transformation into junk, a testament to the stupidity of those who thought they could just steal and get away with it. Now, those two might have been out of jail, but they weren't out of sight. Their trailer, parked in a rundown area, and the only thing they had left? A beater Jeep Liberty. No plates, nothing new. And guess who's been keeping an eye out? The writer. It's like the universe gave him a sign that this wasn't over. The Jeep Liberty wasn't going anywhere unless the writer said so. He had already worked out a deal with the cops to take that too, if it ever made it into the public. And you can bet he wouldn't miss the chance for round 2. So the next time these two knuckleheads think about trying to steal something else, whether it's catalytic converters or cars, they should remember the wreckage they left behind. Karma came knocking on their door, and it didn't just slap them, it crushed them. Talk about a sweet, sweet victory. Like if you think payback is the best kind of revenge. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories where karma's a real bitch. Because it doesn't matter if you steal a car or a catalytic converter. What goes around comes around. I left my ex and took his PlayStation, but not as you might think. There's petty revenge. And then there's the kind that sneaks in quietly, presses one little digital button, and detonates years of someone's digital ego. And this was exactly that. Let me take you back about 10 years. The writer was 19, young but already scarred by a 4-year relationship that could only be described as draining, manipulative, and quietly cruel. She didn't spell out every bruise or every scream, but calling him abusive tells you everything you need to know. And she didn't leave with a bang. No door slamming, no screaming match, no last dramatic confrontation. Nah, she did something even better. While he was off at work, probably thinking everything was still under his control, the writer packed up, walked out, and vanished. Not just across the street, not across the city. She moved 600 kilometers away. That's the kind of escape you only pull off when you've had enough. And for the first time in years, she was safe. She was free. Now, fast forward a few weeks. She's rebuilding, healing. No contact, no chaos, just breathing, finally. Then out of nowhere, a random email lands in her inbox. It's a confirmation, something about a PlayStation game being purchased. Confusing? Yeah, for a second, because the writer didn't own a PlayStation, never had. And then it clicked. He used her email to set up his PlayStation account, probably way back when they were together. Maybe he thought she'd never notice, or maybe he thought he'd get away with using it forever. Typical behavior, honestly. Entitled, lazy, no boundaries. But this was the moment. The spark. The universe handed her the tiniest of openings, and the writer, she took it. At the bottom of the email was a simple line, "Was this not you? Click here." Oh, she clicked. And when she did, the PlayStation system, bless their customer protection policy, immediately flagged the account as potential fraud. 2 clicks. That's all it took. 2 tiny, quiet, cold-blooded clicks. The whole account locked, frozen, dead in the water. Years of purchases gone, game progress wiped. Every late night session, every trophy, every unlocked achievement he clung to like his manhood, obliterated. She didn't even have to say his name. Now, here's where it gets even better, because silence is golden, but pettiness? Oh, that deserves an audience. The writer didn't hear from her ex directly. Of course not. Cowards rarely face you head on. But she got a message from his best friend of all people, and it was glorious. This guy, clearly speaking on behalf of a grown man reduced to digital dust, sent her a guilt-soaked message basically crying on her virtual doorstep. He told her that everything the ex had ever bought was gone, that his progress in every game was erased, that he'd have to go through PlayStation ID verification hell just to create a new account. And of course, he ended it by calling her a terrible human being. Oh no, how dare she, right? How dare she reclaim something that was hers? The email was all drama, all tears, all victimhood. And she just smiled. Because here's the truth. She didn't steal anything. She didn't hack anything. She didn't delete his account or go nuclear. All she did was take back the one thing that was still tied to him, her email address. That was her name, her digital ID, her turf. He thought he could keep riding on the remnants of her life after dragging her through years of hell. But in the end, all it took was one email, one forgotten detail, and one act of reclaiming her identity to burn his whole little digital kingdom to the ground. It wasn't loud, it wasn't messy, it was perfect. So no, she didn't throw his PlayStation out the window. She didn't smash it with a bat. She didn't log in and mess up his stats. She just took her email back, and in doing so, took back her power. And honestly, that's the kind of revenge that ages like wine. If you've ever wanted to silently, surgically dismantle someone who wronged you without lifting more than a finger, this story, this is your anthem. Hit like, drop a comment if you've ever reclaimed your peace in the pettiest way possible, and don't forget to subscribe for more cold-blooded digital justice like this. Took him 6 months. Let me tell you something about petty revenge. The best kind? The kind that ages. Slowly, quietly, like a bomb with a timer you forget you even set, until one day, boom. And that's exactly what the writer pulled off in this little tale of corporate spite. So picture this. The writer was bouncing between jobs, not because they couldn't keep one, but because they were working in a tight-knit industry full of small-time print shops, the kind of places where every employee wears 6 hats, everyone knows each other, and word travels faster than toner through a copier. In a span of 6 months, the writer went through 3 jobs, all in the same industry, all within earshot of each other. And the second job calls the writer up with this absolute gem. Hey, your old boss from job number 1, he's looking for you. Did you do something to the fax machine before you left? Now pause, because this is where the revenge simmers. The writer, calm as you like, goes, yeah, I did. Cue silence. Then the best response a vengeful heart could ask for. I'm not going to tell him where you are. Not because that is the funniest damn thing I've ever heard. Now let's rewind and talk about job number 1. Because to appreciate the revenge, you need to know what kind of boss we're dealing with. This wasn't just any boss. This man was a tyrant in khakis. The kind of guy who'd walk into the office and start his day with complaints. You weren't halfway through your coffee before he was slandering a vendor, trashing a coworker, or acting like the whole world owed him flawless print quality on a $50 budget. The writer didn't say it out loud, but they didn't need to. You could tell. This boss was a walking storm cloud of bitterness and cheap cologne. Probably thought yelling was a management strategy. The kind of guy who micromanages your lunch break and then forgets to pay the electric bill on time. So when the writer left, they didn't slam doors. They didn't send a snarky email. They went for something smarter, something that would stick. You know that line at the top of a fax? The header, where it normally shows your business name and phone number? Yeah, the writer reprogrammed it from whatever company name it originally had to half-assed printing ink. I want you to sit with that for a second. This boss, this self-important, miserable man who prided himself on looking professional, was unknowingly sending out faxes to clients, vendors, possibly even banks or job applicants with the bold heading, half-assed printing ink. And he had no idea. Not for 1 week, not 2, not a month. It took him 6 months, 6 whole months, blasting that name into the business world, completely oblivious. 6 months of clients probably side-eyeing his operation and wondering, is this a joke or is this brutally honest branding? And when he finally caught on, he started hunting the writer down, probably foaming at the mouth, pacing around the shop, muttering like a cartoon villain. But all he found was nothing. The writer was already 2 jobs ahead, untouchable. And even better, job number 2, had their back. Didn't snitch, didn't scold, they laughed, because everybody knew who this guy was. And that's what makes this revenge so satisfying. It wasn't loud, it wasn't messy, it was surgical, clean, quiet, like leaving a note in someone's sandwich bag that only reveals itself after they've eaten the whole thing. So what's the takeaway? Sometimes walking away isn't enough. Sometimes you have to leave a little message, something small, subtle. Just enough to remind the person that treating people like garbage has consequences, that no one forgets being humiliated on the clock, and sometimes that message is etched across a fax machine, in all caps. If you felt that petty revenge down in your soul, hit that like button, drop a comment with the pettiest move you ever pulled, and don't forget to subscribe. Because honestly, being professional is great, but being just a little unhinged on your way out, that's unforgettable. Tricking my slacker coworker into sabotaging himself. There's always that one coworker, the kind who coasts through life like every deadline is optional and every task is somebody else's problem. You know exactly who I'm talking about. In the writer's case, that man's name is Seth. Now, Seth isn't just your run-of-the-mill slacker. This guy is a textbook parasite in business casual. You'll find him scrolling on his phone when everyone else is drowning in deadlines, vanishing for a bathroom break that mysteriously turns into a 20-minute TikTok session, and then, like clockwork, slipping out for lunch and coming back just in time to avoid actual work. He's late, lazy, and loud. But somehow, he's untouchable. Every time someone calls him out, he shapeshifts into this misunderstood, overworked employee. It's infuriating. And for 6 long months, the writer was his favorite victim. Seth would send over vague emails like, "Hey, can you help out with this project?" But let's be real, it wasn't help he wanted. He wanted someone to carry him. He wanted the credit without lifting a damn finger. And every single time the writer stepped up and got it done, Seth would stand a little taller, like he saved the day. The breaking point? A high-stakes report for a client that Seth, of course, dumped on the writer at the last possible minute. No warning, no prep, just a, "Hey bro, can you take this?" 2 days before it was due. That's when the writer decided, if you won't do your job, I'm going to make sure you finally feel what it's like to drown. But this wasn't going to be some loud, obvious act of revenge. No. This was going to be surgical, cold, calculated, beautiful. It all started with one simple question. "Hey Seth, how comfortable are you with Excel?" Seth, with all the confidence of a man who barely knew how to filter a column, replied, "Not really. I usually just copy and paste stuff." Perfect. So when Seth tried yet again to hand off another batch of spreadsheets for an upcoming report, the writer smiled and said, "Sure, I'll take care of it." But this time, he engineered sabotage into every row and column. The spreadsheets were filled with hidden formulas, nothing too obvious, nothing that would throw up red flags, but enough that if someone didn't know what they were doing, everything would unravel like a house of cards. Cells that would self-reference, numbers that would glitch just slightly, formulas that would cascade into chaos if you tried to copy-paste anything. Genius level, petty. Fast forward to D-Day, the deadline for the report. Seth, true to form, had done absolutely nothing. He assumed, as always, that the writer had handled everything. So he rolled into work without a care in the world, probably thinking about what snacks to get from the vending machine. And then, the client called, furious. The report they got was filled with garbage, totally unusable numbers, mismatched data, calculations that made 0 sense. Seth panicked. He tried to fix it, but every time he fixed one part, another fell apart. The more he messed with it, the worse it got. He looked like a man trying to put out a fire with gasoline. Desperate, he finally came crawling to the writer, eyes wide, breath shallow. "Hey man, do you know what's going on with the spreadsheets?" And the writer? Oh, he played it perfectly, innocent, confused, wide-eyed. "Huh? That's weird. Maybe it's just a formatting bug?" He gave Seth the kind of vague advice that sounds helpful but does nothing. Just enough to keep him spinning his wheels, wasting hours on a report that was never meant to survive. By the time the dust settled, Seth had completely melted down in front of the entire team. And this time? The boss wasn't buying the excuses. There was no room to spin it. The evidence was right there. The project was botched, the client was pissed, and Seth hadn't done a thing to prevent it. The verdict? Temporary leave without pay. For the first time in his freeloading life, Seth was held accountable. And the best part, he did it to himself. The writer didn't scream, didn't sabotage his computer, didn't need to get HR involved. He just handed Seth a spreadsheet laced with his own laziness and let him dig his own damn grave. And now, Seth doesn't dump projects on people. He doesn't send helpful little emails. If anything, he walks around with his tail between his legs, praying nobody remembers the day his house of cards collapsed. And the writer? He's back to doing his own work. No freeloaders, no fake friends, just peace and the sweet, satisfying silence of a slacker finally learning what it means to pull his own weight. Let this be a lesson. If you're going to skate by on other people's labor, make sure you're not relying on the wrong one. Because someday they might just let you crash and burn on your own incompetence. Like, comment, and subscribe if you live for stories where the lazy get exactly what they deserve. She didn't do the work, I made sure the professor knew. Group projects. Just hearing those two words is enough to make your stomach twist. Because let's be honest, it's rarely group anything. It's usually one or two people doing all the heavy lifting, one person pretending to help, and one absolute ghost haunting the shared Google Doc like a lazy spirit of mediocrity. In the writer's case, the ghost's name was Ruth. And oh, Ruth was that classmate. It was an upper-level course, tough as nails, the kind that separates the serious from the slackers. The professor, probably in a sadistic mood that day, decided the groups would be randomly assigned, 4 students to a group. And at first, the writer wasn't too worried. 3 out of the 4 seemed on point. Everyone showed up to the first meeting with notebooks, ideas, timelines. Everyone, except Ruth. Now, Ruth did show up, technically, but you know that person who nods along in a group meeting, says, "Yep, sounds good," to everything and contributes absolutely nothing of value? That was her. When it came time to divide responsibilities, she jumped at the easiest task, final editing. Classic move, minimum effort, maximum flexibility, and the illusion of importance. The writer wasn't fooled. Weeks went by. The rest of the group was in the trenches, researching, writing, editing slides at 2 a.m., checking citations, dealing with formatting chaos. But Ruth? Every check-in came with a fresh excuse. My Wi-Fi was down. I wasn't feeling well. I didn't see the update. I thought someone else was doing that part. It was like watching someone scroll through a bingo card of bad excuses. And when the actual deadline crept closer, Ruth disappeared completely. Just vanished. Radio silence. The final editing she promised never happened. The Google Doc sat untouched by her. No comments, no suggestions, not a single letter typed. And that was the moment. The switch flipped. Writer was done being polite, done carrying dead weight, done protecting someone who clearly didn't give a damn. See, the professor had one golden rule for this kind of chaos. Peer evaluations count. You sync your team, you go down alone. And the writer came prepared. Not with complaints, not with gossip, but with receipts. Screenshots of the Google Docs history, timestamps, activity logs, cold, undeniable proof that Ruth hadn't so much as blinked at the project. The writer filled out the peer evaluation with brutal honesty. No dramatics, no exaggeration, just the raw truth. Ruth did not participate in any part of the project. She promised to handle final edits and never followed through. No contributions were made. And the professor? They weren't playing around. Everyone else in the group walked away with a solid A. But Ruth, she got a C. And that's with the benefit of the group dragging her name across the finish line. That C was generous, but Ruth didn't see it that way. A few days later, the writer gets an email. "Hey, could you maybe talk to the professor and let them know I was part of the team? I think there's been a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding? Nah, sweetheart. The only thing misunderstood was Ruth thinking she could sit back, freeload, and still ride the A train. The writer hit reply with the precision of a mic drop. "You might want to check the Google Docs history first." And that was it. No response, no defense, no apology, just silence. The same kind she gave during the entire project. That's the thing about people like Ruth. They think silence is strategy, that avoiding responsibility makes them smart. But the minute someone hits back with facts, with quiet, calculated revenge wrapped in data and deadlines, they vanish again. But this time, it's because they lost. If you've ever carried a group project on your back, if you've ever stayed up all night fixing someone else's mess, or if you've had a Ruth in your life, this one's for you. And to the real ones who know how to fight fire with a screenshot, you're the reason the rest of us survive group projects. Like, comment, and subscribe if you've ever dropped the hammer on someone who thought coasting meant winning. Make my girlfriend feel bad at work, I'll make you feel bad about your ring. Some people really don't know when to stop. The writer's girlfriend, who we'll affectionately call Sweetie Face, wasn't working some cushy office gig or slinging coffee in a quiet cafe. No, she was out there every day, pulling long shifts in a physically demanding, borderline dangerous job with animals. The kind of job that's already exhausting on its own, mentally, physically, emotionally. Now throw in a coworker who makes it her personal mission to suck the joy out of every shift. You've got a recipe for burnout. Fast. Let's meet Dumbface. Yeah, that's what we're calling her. Because when someone chooses to dump their workload on others, avoid accountability like it's a virus, and make work hell for everyone else, they've earned the title. According to the writer, this woman didn't just occasionally slack off. Nah, she made professional laziness an art form, dodged responsibilities like she was training for the Olympics. She'd conveniently vanish whenever the tough or gross or risky tasks needed doing, and just like that, they'd fall into Sweetie Face's lap. The mess, the stress, the emotional toll. It piled on. And every night, Sweetie Face would come home looking like the light in her was just a little dimmer. Now, if that were the whole story, it would just be a sad tale about toxic work environments. But Dumbface? She decided to take things further. One day, she comes bouncing into work, practically glowing. Not because she finally pulled her weight or did something decent, but because she got engaged. And look, everyone deserves to be excited about their engagement. Celebrate it, show off the ring, gush a little, that's fine. But Dumbface, she wasn't sharing the joy, she was weaponizing it. That ring was front and center every single shift. Every conversation found a way back to it. Oh, this task reminds me of when Brad proposed. Or I almost dropped my hand sanitizer, but thank God I saved the ring. And suddenly she wasn't just the lazy coworker, she was the smug, attention-hogging fiancé who needed everyone to know she was the center of the universe. But here's the part that makes this story delicious. The writer had been dating Sweetie Face for 3 years. He'd already been planning to propose. But now there was an opportunity, an opening to deliver the kind of quiet, precise, untraceable revenge that hits deeper than any argument ever could. He didn't confront Dumbface, didn't embarrass her publicly, he just got to work. Where Dumbface's ring was gold, he chose platinum. She had a modest 1-carat diamond. Writer went 1.7 with clarity so clean it practically whispered, "I'm better." Dumbface had a generic round cut. The writer went for a cut that sparkled like wildfire under every light, catching attention in the most passive-aggressive way possible. And how did he know the specs of her ring? Oh, because Dumbface would not shut up about them. At work functions, at meetups, anywhere she could brag. That info? Stored, weaponized, used. So when Sweetie Face came back from their romantic weekend getaway, her new engagement ring was a statement. Not just of love, but of domination. She walked into that break room, lifted her hand with a smile, and suddenly, the air changed. Everyone was impressed, except for Dumbface. Oh, she saw that ring. She felt that burn, she knew. And within seconds, she stormed out of the room and cried in the hallway. Not because anyone attacked her, not because anyone said a word, but because her whole little fantasy of being the princess bride had been outshined. Ruthlessly, effortlessly, elegantly. She never mentioned her ring again, not once. Every time Sweetie Face walked by, Dumbface's smile twitched. She scowled, because deep down, she knew she lost a game she didn't even realize she was playing, and she lost badly. Not long after, Sweetie Face left that job. A clean exit, new beginnings, no drama, no explosions. And Dumbface, who knows? Who cares? Her reign of sparkle was over. Later, when Sweetie Face learned why her now husband might have gone a little overboard with the ring, she laughed. She called it terrible, but she laughed. Because that level of petty, that level of tasteful, tactical payback, it's hard not to respect it. So what's the lesson here? If you're gonna make someone else miserable at work, maybe don't also turn into a walking brag machine, because you never know who's watching, who's listening, and who's about to outshine your whole existence without saying a damn word. If you've ever wanted to clap back without getting loud, if you've ever fantasized about sweet, silent payback that just destroys someone's ego, this one's for you. Like, comment, and subscribe if you've ever let karma speak louder than your words and made sure it sparkled while doing it. Snooping neighbor got a taste of their own medicine. All right, this isn't the writer's story directly. This one belongs to the writer's mom. And let me tell you, this woman is petty royalty. Calm, calculated, the kind of lady who doesn't raise her voice because she doesn't need to. Her tactics are silent, but surgical. So here's the scene. There's this tight little neighborhood circle, a weekly ladies' meetup tradition. One week it's tea at Brenda's, Next week, it's gossip at Susan's, then coffee and samosas at our writer's place. Your classic suburban squad armed with bangles, chays, and low-stakes drama. Until Judy enters the chat. Now, Judy's that one neighbor. You know exactly who I'm talking about. Fake smile, too curious, always just wandering. She talks about being spiritual, but knows everyone's Wi-Fi password. She doesn't walk into a house, she inspects it. Real estate agent energy, but without the license or the manners. So a few weeks ago, the gathering was at the writer's mom's place. The afternoon's moving along. Snacks out, shoes off, idle chit-chat about husbands, kids, and the price of lentils. Then Judy gets up, says she needs to use the washroom. 10 minutes later, the writer's mom walks past the hallway and finds Judy not in the bathroom, but casually stepping out of her daughter's old bedroom. Door halfway open, her eyes doing that guilty dog look. The one that says, "I swear I wasn't sniffing through your drawer," but also absolutely was. When questioned, Judy goes, "Oh, I got lost." Lost? In a house you visited before? You got lost into a closed bedroom? Sure, Judy. Now, the writer's mom doesn't explode. She doesn't cause a scene. That's not her style. She just files it away like a pro. But later that week, she brings it up to the other ladies. Turns out, everyone's caught Judy snooping. Carol found her in her guest bedroom. Shalini caught her cracking open her jewelry cabinet. And when they confronted her, Judy did what all chronic snoopers do. Got loud, defensive, and played the victim. The whole, "how dare you accuse me" routine. Tears included. Classic Judy. But here's where this story takes a glorious turn. Talking wasn't going to work. Reasoning with someone like Judy, pointless. She doesn't operate on logic. She thrives on drama. So the crew came up with something better. Petty, symbolic, unforgettable. The next weekend's meetup, Judy's house. And the ladies, they came armed, not with words, not with threats, but with googly eye stickers. Yeah, you heard that right. Googly freaking eyes. Each woman, one by one, left the living room pretending to go to the bathroom, and while Judy thought they were powdering their noses, they were slapping those eyeballs on every surface like surveillance ghosts. Behind curtains, on the fridge, inside her favorite plant pot, one even stuck behind the photo of her dog. Everywhere she might snoop, they put an eye, watching, judging. And when they left her house, they weren't done. Mailbox, fence, the front gate, even her own doorbell got the treatment. By the time they were gone, her house looked like it had been blessed and cursed by a committee of googly-eyed spirits. Now, here's the best part. According to the neighborhood grapevine, Judy lost it. Sunday morning, she was seen pacing around her house like she was being hunted by sticker demons. She was peeling off eyes with the urgency of a woman trying to erase guilt. Up the stairs, down the stairs, outside, inside, scrubbing every surface, probably checking her spice jars for hidden cameras. Pure chaos. Did anyone confront her directly? Nope. Did anyone admit to it? Of course not. Because here's the real revenge. It wasn't about calling her out. It was about getting in her head, making her feel exactly what she made everyone else feel. Violated, exposed, watched. She couldn't brush this off. She couldn't play the victim. There was no big confrontation for her to cry her way out of, just googly eyes silently judging her every move. And honestly, chef's kiss. That's how you deal with a chronic snooper, not with yelling, not with drama. You let their own paranoia do the heavy lifting. If this story made you laugh, smirk, or think of that one nosy neighbor we all know, hit that like button, drop a comment with your own neighborhood revenge stories, and don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes petty isn't just satisfying, it's justice. Complain about dinner? You cook the next one. There's a difference between growing up with less and growing up where every single meal feels like a quiet battlefield between hunger and gratitude. That's the world the writer came from, tight wallets. And a household where no one had the luxury to be picky. Food stamps, secondhand everything, utilities that came and went like seasonal guests. That's the background. That's the weight behind every plate served. And with that came one rule, a rule that every kid in that house knew like gospel. If dinner's on your plate, you eat it. No complaints. Whether it was liver and onions that looked like regret itself or peppers that tasted like bitterness incarnate, it didn't matter. Dinner was not a democracy. If your stomach growled, you listened. You didn't backtalk the cook. You chewed. But kids being kids, they pushed back. They'd mutter, roll eyes, maybe let a sarcastic comment slip out too loud, and eventually their mom had enough. She wasn't about to be a punching bag for picky eaters, so she laid it down. You complain, you cook the next dinner. And it stuck. Because once you're the one sweating over the stove, suddenly your standards get real humble. You learn, you shut your mouth, you grow up. Now, fast forward years later, the writer is 19, no longer at home, but carrying every one of those lessons with her. She's moved in with her fiance's family, a traditional household. Conservative, straightforward. Dad's the breadwinner, mom runs the home, chores are split by gender, roles are set in stone, and no one really questions it. Until one night, dinner's served, plates are full. But Dad, he's not happy. He makes that loud kind of noise. The one that's not just complaining, it's demeaning. He's raising his voice, getting in his wife's space, clearly unhappy with whatever was put on his plate, not a peep from anyone else. But the writer, she doesn't sit back. She's watching it unfold, and she's done swallowing her tongue just to keep the peace. So she throws in her own 2 cents, but not with yelling. No accusations. Just truth, served cool. Funny, growing up, if you complained about dinner, you were the one who had to cook the next one. At first, it lands like a joke. He laughs. Mom laughs. The fiancé, yeah, he's sweating bullets, doesn't know whether to run or just fade into the couch. But the writer, she's not blinking. She leans in. No, really, you hurt her feelings. What are you cooking tomorrow? That's when the room shifts, because no one talks to Dad like that. Not disrespectful, but direct, honest, and completely unexpected. Mom's eyes go wide. Dad stutters, tries to joke it off, tries to sidestep, but he's backed into a corner, and whether it's pride or the sudden realization that maybe he was being a jerk, he agrees. And that's when the unexpected happens. The next day, this man, this old school, men don't cook type of guy, rolls up his sleeves and makes chili. And not just some make a point, bare minimum meal. Nah, he goes all in. And y'all? Apparently dad-in-law makes a hell of a chili. Not just edible, killer. Spice, flavor, heart, the whole thing. And that moment, that shift, it wasn't just about a pot of food. It was a crack in a wall that had probably been there for decades. It was someone who had never been challenged finally being held accountable, but not with anger, just with reason. With a lesson taught years ago in a much tougher home. It was a small thing, one meal, but it made a ripple. And I guarantee from that point on, the whole vibe around that dinner table changed. Because once you cook, once you know the effort that goes in, you stop complaining so quickly. And honestly, that rule, that you complain, you cook deal, it's not just petty, it's not just fair, it's genius. Moral of the story, if you're gonna gripe about the meal, you better be ready to grip a spatula. If you like this story, hit that like button, drop a comment if you've ever flipped the script on a dinner table drama, and don't forget to subscribe for more real talk and petty revenge stories that hit home. I was the only one cleaning the bathroom, so I stopped using it too. Let's talk about something truly evil, the shared apartment bathroom. No one tells you this when you move in with roommates, but the real battlefield isn't rent or dishes or what temperature to set the thermostat. Nope, it's the bathroom. The toilet bowl, the drain full of God knows what, the toothpaste splatter that nobody ever claims. That's where the war is fought. And for the writer of this story, that's where it all went down. So, the writer lives with 2 roommates. And for some reason, without any official discussion, without a whiteboard calendar or a group chat agreement, they just ended up being the only one cleaning the bathroom, week after week, scrubbing the toilet, wiping down the mirror, pulling gunk out of the drain with bare hands like it was some kind of cursed monster. And what were the roommates doing? Living in filth like it was a spa day. No thank yous, no help, no shame. But the human soul has limits, and the writer hit theirs. So they decided, enough. No more being the apartment janitor. But here's the genius move. They didn't just stop cleaning. Oh no. They stopped using the bathroom altogether. That's right. The writer made a clean, silent exit, started showering at the gym, brushing their teeth in the kitchen, using the bathroom at work, or even walking down the block to a coffee shop just to pee. That's a level of commitment you don't see every day. A personal bathroom boycott, not even a warning shot fired, just gone, out of the swamp. And the results? Oh, they were disgusting. 2 weeks go by, and during those 2 weeks, that bathroom morphed into a horror show. Mold creeping up the shower curtain like it was auditioning for a science project, hair everywhere like a barber had been murdered, toothpaste crusts solidifying like cement, the kind of filth that stares back at you. Then one of the roommates, clueless, bold, and apparently nose-blind, finally speaks up. Dude, can you clean the bathroom? It's disgusting. Now pause. Imagine the nerve, the absolute audacity of living like a swamp creature and then point fingers when the mud starts choking the walls. But the writer? Cool as ice. Oh, I thought we were taking turns? I haven't even used it. Silence, not the guilty kind where someone apologizes. No, this was that hollow, awkward silence that hits when someone realizes they've been caught being an inconsiderate piece of crap. And guess what happened next? They cleaned it. Finally. After weeks of letting it rot under their own laziness, the roommates scrubbed. And now, the bathroom's not perfect. Still far from a Pinterest-worthy washroom, but it's no longer biohazardous. There's effort, there's visible shame, and for the writer, that's enough. No more feeling like they need gloves just to pee in their own home. No more being the unsung bathroom martyr. The real moral here? People will happily let you suffer if you make it easy for them. But the second you pull back, the second they have to sit in the consequences of their own filth, things start changing. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was petty, but it was powerful. Sometimes the quietest revolutions start with not scrubbing the damn toilet. If you've ever been the only clean one in a dirty house, drop a comment below. Hit that like button if you've also stopped doing something just to make others finally notice. And don't forget to subscribe for more petty justice stories where the revenge is subtle, but the satisfaction, oh, it hits hard. My roommate kept stealing my oat milk, so I switched it with watered down mayo juice. You ever live with someone who lies straight to your face? Over milk? The writer wasn't just dealing with a roommate, they were dealing with a liar. The kind who'd look you dead in the eye, deny everything, then go right back to doing the thing they swore they'd never do. In this case, oat milk. Every damn week, it got lighter. A little less than before, a little more vanished into the abyss. Writer knew what was up. We all know what's up when you leave your stuff in the fridge and it starts to mysteriously disappear. But they gave the guy a chance, a warning, sticky note, classic move, a polite, hey, don't touch this. Didn't work. Moved it to the back of the fridge like it was hiding from a bear. Didn't matter. The oat milk kept walking off. So the writer, they snapped, but not in rage. No yelling, no passive-aggressive texts. This wasn't going to be some childish drama. No, this was going to be surgical, precise, cold-blooded. They took an empty oat milk carton, same kind their thieving roommate was chugging like it was free samples at a farmer's market, and filled it with something sinister. Mayonnaise, warm water, a splash of vinegar just to let the sin really sting. A blend so foul it could haunt dreams. The color, spot on. The texture, disturbingly accurate. The intent, vengeful perfection. And then they placed it right at the front of the fridge, like bait. Label out, practically glowing. It was begging to be stolen. And of course, like clockwork, this guy couldn't resist. Next morning, boom, the moment. Sip, pause, gag, guttural huff. You could probably hear this man's soul leave his body. He slammed the fridge like it had personally betrayed him. What the hell is wrong with this milk? Oh, the drama, the betrayal, the confusion, the sudden realization that he had been targeted. And the writer? Calm as ever, just blinked, completely unbothered. I dunno. Tastes fine to me. That right there, that's Oscar-worthy. That's the kind of petty justice that deserves slow claps and standing ovations. Because this wasn't just about milk. This was about principle, respect, boundaries. The roommate never touched it again. Of course he didn't. Once you get hit with mayo milk, your soul changes. Your trust in dairy alternatives shatters. You question life. You rethink choices. And the writer, they didn't need to scream. They didn't need to argue. They just served cold revenge in the fridge with a splash of vinegar. If you've ever had a roommate who treated the fridge like it was their personal buffet, like, comment, and subscribe right now, because sometimes the pettiest revenge is the one you can pour in a glass and let karma do the rest. Some guy parked across 3 handicap spots and left his windows open. This went down just yesterday. So yeah, the writer is still riding the high. Late April, the writer's walking, or rather limping through life with a busted foot and ankle. Post-surgery. The kind of injury that turns basic errands into missions. The kind of pain that earns you a temporary handicap placard because moving around isn't just inconvenient, it's miserable. So picture this. It's midday, sun's out, parking lot's quiet, and the writer's just trying to grab some groceries from Target. A quick in and out trip. Nothing dramatic. Just peace, produce, and maybe a self-checkout lane that actually works. But what do they find instead? One car. A Porsche. Glossy smug and sitting across 3 entire handicap spaces. Parked sideways, like it's on display. No placard, no tags, nothing but audacity. And the kicker? The passenger window? Wide. Freaking. Open. Like the car itself was flipping everyone off and saying, yeah, I park where I want. You already know the kind of person who does this. The type who thinks rules are suggestions and other people's needs are just obstacles to step over. The writer saw that, and something in them snapped. Not loudly, not with yelling, but with a plan. A quiet, subtle, absolutely diabolical plan. They walked over. No smashing, no vandalism, nothing illegal. Just scooped up a handful of dirt and gravel from nearby and sprinkled it gently onto the passenger seat. Not a mess. Just enough to be noticed. Just enough to whisper, hey, maybe don't be such a jackass next time. And then, the masterpiece. The writer walked into Target, calm as anything, and told the front desk, hey, I think I saw a raccoon crawl into that Porsche parked across the handicap spots. It was the perfect storm. No direct accusation, just planting a seed. Just enough to get everyone involved without ever laying a finger on the car again. The intercom lit up. Attention Target shoppers, will the owner of a Porsche parked in the handicap area please come to the front desk? There may be a pest issue. And oh, the drama that unfolded. The writer stayed close, just watching, waiting. Because if karma was going to do a drive-by, they were getting front row seats. Suddenly this guy comes sprinting toward the front, not walking, running, sweating. Panicked, already yelling. He's screaming about his car, blaming the staff, accusing Target of having pest problems. He's throwing tantrums like a toddler who dropped his ice cream, calling employees names, cussing like it's going to make the gravel disappear. But guess who else shows up? Security. And not just any security, a biker-looking dude. Big, built, no nonsense. He pulls up like he's seen this kind of entitled meltdown 100 times before and is already bored of it. Then the real justice hits. Parking enforcement is called. Boom. Parking violation. Ticketed. Slammed. And just when you think it's over, he gets banned from Target. That's right. Because of his own behavior. Not because of a raccoon. Not because of gravel. Because he showed his entire ass in front of half the store. And all the while, the writer, watching from a safe distance, no dirt on their hands, not a single lie spoken, just a quiet observation. I think I saw a raccoon. No actual raccoon needed. Let's be real. This was poetic. Because sometimes you don't need to destroy someone's car to ruin their day. You just need to let their own ego drive them straight into a wall of consequences. If you've ever wanted to clap back at someone who parks like the world revolves around them, like, subscribe, and drop a comment right now. Because this is what justice looks like when you mix a little pain, a little patience, and a sprinkle of dirt. Old lady wanted to be impatient, so I decided to be petty. This one happened just today, so you already know, the writer's still riding the pettiness high, and honestly, it's deserved. The scene? Local mall. It's a typical post-shopping moment. The writer and their wife are wrangling the kids back into the car, which, if you've ever done it, you know it's not a 5-second task. There's the snacks, the toys, the half-open juice box, the sudden questions about dinosaurs. It's chaos in car seat form. But it's their normal, and they're handling it. While the writer's buckling in their oldest kid and casually chatting about lunch, Nothing dramatic, just a sweet parenting moment. They start to hear beeping, not a honk of emergency, not a friendly, hey, you forgot your lights. Nah, this was the impatient, aggressive kind. That move it honk, repeated, sharp, obnoxious. At first, the writer didn't even realize it was aimed at them. But then their wife speaks up. Turns out there's a lady sitting right behind them, blinker on, practically lurking for their parking spot. Look, nobody owns a spot. It's first come, first serve. But this woman, she didn't just wait, she harassed. Still honking, still inching closer like tailgating was going to make the kids buckle in faster. Now, at this point, most people would just finish up and leave. But this isn't a story about letting rude people win. The writer says, screw it, I'm leaving. But the lady, she's now parked way too close, like she's trying to climb into the trunk. The writer starts backing out, slowly and carefully, but there's no space. She keeps creeping forward, making it impossible to maneuver without risking a fender bender. So what does the writer do? They try, they really do. But after struggling and seeing this woman just getting closer and more entitled by the second, the switch flips. At this point, 5 minutes have passed. 5 minutes of nonstop honking, aggressive tailing, and bad energy. And here's the thing, there are other open spots. This woman could have easily parked elsewhere. But no, she wanted this one. She wanted it now, and she didn't care who she pissed off to get it. That's when the writer turns to his wife and says it straight. Since she didn't want to let me out, I'll make sure she finds another spot. Petty mode activated. The writer calmly, slowly pulls back into the parking space, reverses the effort, puts the car in park, unbuckles, opens the door, stands up, and starts walking back toward the mall like they've got all the time in the world. No rage, no shouting, just pure surgical inconvenience. And the lady, oh, she snaps, slams the gas, speeds off in a huff, probably yelling at her steering wheel. And the second she's gone, the writer walks right back to the car, gets in, and actually leaves. That woman could have had the spot, she would have had it. But her impatience, her arrogance, her need to rush people, that cost her. She had time. She wasted it. And the writer just handed her the bill. It's not about being nice. It's not about just letting it go. Sometimes you've got to remind people that you don't get to stomp on others just because you're in a rush. Because if you honk, harass, and hover your way through life, don't be surprised when someone out-petties you with a smile. So yeah, yes, the writer was petty, but you know what? Sometimes pettiness is just justice, wearing flip-flops and sunglasses in a mall parking lot. If you've ever dealt with an impatient, entitled driver, drop a comment, smash that like button, and subscribe for more stories where karma wears the writer's seatbelt. Because sometimes the best revenge is parking your peace right where it hurts. Owner fired my dad, then came asking for work. Denied. It all started in 1997, back when the internet sounded like dial-up and loyalty still meant something. The writer's stepdad was running things as the operations manager at a telecom company. Solid guy, knew his work, took care of his people. And one of those people, the writer. Summer gig turned into a full-blown career path. The writer found themselves actually enjoying the grind, sweaty work, tangled wires, but it felt right. But just 4 months in, things took a sharp, ugly turn. Over something small, something ridiculously trivial, the owner of the company fired the writer's stepdad. Just like that. No warning, no sit-down talk. Fired him like he was disposable. It was personal. It was petty, and it was completely uncalled for. The writer still employed there had a different last name, so they weren't tied to the fallout, at least not officially. But let's be real, this was personal now. The writer had already started noticing red flags with the company. Shady pay, broken promises, benefits that were totally coming next month but never showed. Still, they stuck it out another 1.5 years. But you can only take so much. Eventually, they walked. And when they walked up into a job with a major telecom provider. The kind of place that actually respected its workers. A place with real money and real power. Fast forward a few years. Now the writer's sitting behind a desk with real decision-making authority, the one doing the hiring, holding the pen, holding the power. And what do you know? Who calls? That same company, that same smug owner. The irony? He didn't recognize the name. The writer was just another voice on the other end of the line. He wanted a shot at becoming a contractor for the new company, said he wanted to talk over lunch. Now, at this point, the writer could have just said no. But when karma hands you the mic, you sing. So they agreed to meet at one of those fancy spots they'd always wanted to try, probably the kind of place that guy never would have treated his employees to. The owner showed up in full salesman mode, polished pitch, practiced smile, bragged about how well he treats his workers, how solid his team is, the quality of his work. It was all so performative, like he'd read a book on how to fake integrity. Then the writer slid in a casual question. "Do you remember the guy who hired me?" The man nodded. "Yeah, sure. Of course he did. That's my stepdad." And that's when it hit him. The panic didn't just show, it screamed. The blood probably drained from his face in real time. He knew exactly who he was talking to now, knew he messed with the wrong family, knew his past had come back to sit at the same table in a better suit with more power. The writer didn't need to yell, didn't need to make a scene, just smiled, thanked him for the meal, and politely let him know the contractor list was full. Translation? You're never getting in, pal. That door slammed, locked, dead bolted. And that, right there, is what you call a full circle mic drop. See, revenge doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes it's a quiet lunch. Sometimes it's watching someone realize they burned a bridge years ago and now they're standing at the edge of it with no way across. And you're just watching from the other side, with the view and the job and the power. Sweet, sweet, silent revenge. Make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment if you've ever dreamed of a full circle moment like this. Karma may take its time, but when it hits, it hits. If I can't have it, then neither can you. So here's the setup. The writer's at the airport, short-term parking. That cursed, anxiety-soaked concrete jungle where everyone's either late, lost, or pretending they're above the rules. And like any normal human, the writer's circling, hunting for that one sweet, precious open spot. Finally, a car starts to back out. The writer sees it, hits the brakes, flips the blinker on. Claim officially staked. We all know the rules here. That's parking lot code. You wait. You respect the blink. You don't swoop. It's not just etiquette, it's law in the Wild West of airport parking. But oh no, here comes Red Camaro guy blasting through the unspoken contract like it never existed. Flashy car, sunglasses, arm draped over the steering wheel like he's starring in his own music video. Passenger seat, trophy girlfriend, gorgeous, indifferent, scrolling through her phone like the world is background noise. He sees the spot. He knows the writer was waiting, doesn't care. He dives right in. And the writer? They pull up, fair and square, windows down, still giving him a chance to do the right thing. I was waiting for that space. He shrugs. Sorry. Sorry. The most cowardly word when it's meant to dismiss, not apologize. The kind of sorry that doesn't mean I feel bad, but I got mine, screw you. Writer fires back. Well, if you're sorry, then you can leave and give me the spot I was clearly waiting for. He rolls up the window, and just like that, the rules of war have been written. So the writer parks somewhere else, finds another spot. But they don't let it go. Oh no, they circle back, because when someone pulls a move that's smug, that disrespectful, you don't just let it ride. You don't turn the other cheek. You walk right back to that shiny red Camaro and make it uncomfortable. Now let's be clear, the writer had keys in hand. And yeah, they thought about it. Not because they're reckless, but because the thought of dragging a key across that high-polished red paint job starts to feel earned when someone pulls a stunt like that. But no, they hold back. Because the writer, they don't need to destroy anything to make their point. They do something better. He's still in the car, still sitting there chatting with his girlfriend, probably thinking he's the king of this asphalt kingdom. The writer walks up, cool, calm, collected, and knocks on the window. The guy rolls it down, already annoyed, expecting drama. And the writer? They smile sweetly. You know, they say, you really have a gorgeous car. His ego eats it up. He softens, nods, says thanks, probably thinking he's about to get flirted with. He reaches to roll the window back up like that's the end of the conversation. But then the writer hits him with the dagger. Cool as ice. But wait, there's something I want you to think about while you're in the airport. His face changes, confused, suspicious. The writer leans in just enough and says, "I know where your car is parked, and you don't know where mine is." Boom. Silence. You could hear the gears grinding in his head. That ego? Cracked. He gets it. Suddenly, he's not sitting in a car. He's sitting in a target, a sleek, red, vulnerable trophy in a parking lot full of people he pissed off. And that's when panic sets in. He backs out, peels off. That parking spot, the one he stole, now empty. The writer stays calm, no raised voice, no drama, no property damage, just pure psychological warfare. Like a petty revenge ninja, slipping in, dropping a mind bomb, and walking away. Girlfriend screams bitch out the window. Because she knows that moment was a checkmate and her man just got outplayed in public. And that, my friends, is the art of the kill without ever raising a weapon. So yeah, if the writer couldn't have the spot, he damn sure wasn't going to enjoy it either. Sometimes you don't need to fight. You just need to remind people they're not untouchable. So if you've ever had your spot stolen, your patience tested, or your middle finger hovering near the steering wheel, like, subscribe, and drop a comment with your favorite parking lot revenge, because in the end, you don't have to be violent to be viciously effective.